When the first settlers landed in America, it was a vast, unexplored wilderness. Trails soon appeared, of course, and eventually became tracks or wagon roads during the westward expansion. And these finally developed into a system of highways with the coming of the automobile in the 20th century. But in just the past few decades, a new kind of road has begun to spread across the nation. It is called thruway, or parkway, or expressway, or freeway, but the names all mean the same thing. We shall call it freeway, but whatever the name, it is now a part of our way of life. Freeways are already proving invaluable, particularly around large population centers. But they do pose some special problems for the millions of drivers who use them. Freeways are designed for the high-speed movement of great numbers of automobiles, and when used properly are safer than ordinary surface streets, 2.5 times safer in fact. But the freeway is a new and different world, a world which requires a new and different kind of driving by those who use it. Motorists here are bound together by certain practical rules and courtesies necessary for mutual protection. And any individual who does not or will not recognize this is a menace to everyone. However, such drivers can usually be separated into certain types, which can be illustrated by a few rather extreme examples. This specimen we shall call Driverius timidicus, the timid driver, a shy and retiring fellow. Usually overcautious, he can be a definite menace because he does not adjust to freeway driving demands. For an example, observe the way he enters a freeway on which the traffic is heavy but moving well. Mr. T proceeds carefully along the entrance ramp, which of course he should do. Now he tries to keep one eye on the car ahead of him and the other on his rear view mirror to look for oncoming traffic. But he doesn't really trust mirrors, and he finds it confusing anyway. So he slows down as he would at an ordinary street intersection and takes a good look. The spaces seem very small. So, again, as he would at an intersection, he stops to wait for a big opening. This often comes as a surprise to drivers behind him and can result in a sort of boxcar effect. Now, while Timidicus watches for that big opening, let's go back a moment and see what he should have done. With the entrance ramp clear ahead, he should have been picking up speed to begin to match that of cars in the traffic lanes. His rear view mirror, plus a quick glance back, would have covered any blind spots, and he could have made final speed adjustments in the merging or acceleration lane. Now, showing firm intention, he would need only a slight change in speed, faster or slower, to slip easily into a small space. Also, the driver behind is now able to be courteous and let him in. But getting back to Mr. T, he has increased his own problem enormously by stopping unnecessarily. To go from a full stop to freeway speed, say about 55 miles per hour, would require over 500 feet, roughly twice the length of a football field, before he can merge safely. And Mr. T must start at precisely the right instant, or the gap will close too quickly, and he will be in danger of a rear-end collision. The approaching driver will be forced to slow down. And this can mushroom into a chain reaction, causing the boxcar effect again, this time far down the line of traffic. But again, what about Timidicus, who at last finds himself on the freeway? High speed makes him nervous and apprehensive, so he drives slowly. If he keeps to the right and doesn't go too slow, this causes little real trouble. But all too often, he strays into the fast traffic lanes. Mr. T, convinced that people shouldn't drive so fast anyway, believes he is driving safely and has no idea that he may be creating a problem. But now, drivers behind him are forced to slow down quickly to avoid a collision, or rapidly change lanes, which causes others to slow down. This can result in the usual chain reaction and boxcar effect. And innocent drivers often pay because Mr. T does not adjust to the freeway. The delay and confusion that follows invariably frays nerves and tempers and reveals another freeway menace we shall call Motoramus fidgetus, the impatient motorist.
Gall dang people that camp on the freeway. Come on, get going.
Members of this species are usually excitable.
What's the matter up there? Move it, come on, move it.
Explosive in nature.
Get a horse.
Or highly competitive in spirit.
Oh, yeah? Well, the same to you, Buster.
Mr. F usually displays an avid desire to get ahead, and when free to do so, is an habitual lane changer. Of course, a lane change is sometimes necessary, and when it is, a signal should always be given first. Next, a quick look to cover the blind spot. Then speed up and move in well ahead of the car in the next lane. Freeway pros will cooperate by dropping back a bit, for they know that courtesy is a practical rule here. But Fidgetus, in his impatience, will cut sharply in front of other drivers, forcing them to use their brakes. The same chain reaction often results. And Mr. F's progress can sometimes be measured by the path of destruction he leaves behind. But Mr. F occasionally finds himself unable to pass the car ahead. And now, in irate frustration, he is apt to move up bumper to bumper, regardless of the speed.
Come on, get going, get out of my way.
Unfortunately, Mr. F doesn't realize he's driving a potential engine of destruction more powerful than the largest battering ram ever to breach a castle wall. To explain, let us pause a moment, return him to his car, and see some freeway facts of life. Let's say Mr. F is traveling 60 miles per hour. A figure equal to about half the number of miles per hour added to that number gives the speed in feet per second. Thus, at 60 miles per hour, 90 feet is approximately the distance Mr. F's car travels in just 1 second. On a football field, it would move about 30 yards every second and go from goal line to goal line in just over 3 seconds. But now let's go down to the field for a little demonstration in which Mr. F himself is the subject. As he watches the scoreboard, a signal suddenly flashes. Now let's see what happens inside Mr. F. First, his eyes receive the signal and transmit it to certain centers in his brain. There it is identified, analyzed, calculated, and computed. And an action decision may be handed down.
Stop! Hit the brake!
The message goes out to the legs and feet, and finally the brakes are applied. If we run through it again with a stopwatch, we find all this takes about 1 second.
Stop! Hit the brake!
Now, if Mr. F crosses the goal line at 60 miles per hour just as a stop signal flashes, he will travel a minimum of 30 yards before he touches his brakes. And even with good brakes and dry pavement, he will still cover another 70 yards to the opposite goal before finally stopping. So, Mr. F was actually preceded by a sort of danger zone made up of his reaction distance plus his braking distance. Now, imagine he's on the freeway, a bit behind and to one side of a car identical to his. Let's go to slow motion and suppose that for some reason the leading driver decides to stop and applies his brakes here. Mr. F reacts as soon as he sees the flashing taillight ahead, but he cannot apply his brakes until here, past the point where the first driver began to stop. The braking distances are the same, and Mr. F comes to a halt this much farther along. Obviously, had Mr. F been in the same lane, there would have been a jarring rear-end collision. And possibly even others. When behind another car on the freeway, drop back as speed increases to allow for reaction distance. Under good conditions, the usual rule of thumb is 1 car length for every 10 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour, 6 car lengths. When road conditions are poor, make it a bit more. Now, back to Fidgetus. Does he drop back as speed increases? No. He's still bumper chasing. Is he alert to movements several cars ahead of him, anticipating possible emergencies? No. He's left himself no margin of safety because he... watch it! Not now! Look out for the car ahead! It's stopping! Even if the impact speed is down to 30 miles per hour, the result for Mr. F could be like driving off the roof of a 3-story building. Last but not least, we have the annoying type, called neglectorus maximus, the inattentive driver. Often Mr. N is simply hypnotized by the drone of traffic and carried off to dreamland. Then again, he may suddenly decide that the freeway is an ideal place to study his maps. You may see him enjoying a second cup of coffee, or even getting in a quick shave while driving. Of course, his favorite pastime is conversation, especially with someone in the back seat.
Yeah, just picked her up this morning. Flat out, she'll put down anything on the road.
Neglectorus can be a problem to others, even when not directly involved, because he's usually a rubbernecker. And if some mishap slows traffic on one side of the freeway, he will jam the other side simply by being curious. And Mr. N is particularly careless regarding signs and directions. Thus, he is usually almost past his exit when he notices it, has to change lanes quickly to make it, and there's the same old chain reaction. Finally, Mr. N often neglects his speedometer and forgets he is moving at freeway speeds as he re-enters the world of surface streets.
Oh, hush up!
So, on the freeway, watch out for the driver types we have called neglectorus, fidgetus, and timidicus. From time to time, you're bound to see one of these characters, and when you do, avoid them if you can.
Yeah, and just make sure you never become one. You see what I mean?